welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Frank Tomeno is our guest. Frank is the history columnist for the Observer-Dispatch, has been for many a year. We're talking about the Battle of Oriskany because the anniversary of that very important battle is right around the corner, August 6th. And Frank, I mentioned before the break that the monument on the battlefield, I think it's 85 feet tall, monument up there, looks something like the Washington Monument, a smaller version of the Washington Monument. First project of the United County Historical Society at the time.
Yeah, it was. It was the first project. The society was formed in 1876, and it was John Seymour, who was Horatio Seymour's brother, and others who decided that should be our, the Battle of Oriskany was an important battle, they said, and now it's farmland. I mean, there's not even a sign there that says, So the society bought 5 acres where they thought the battle had taken place. They bought farmland, and they began to raise money to erect a monument. And this was just a few, almost 100 years after the battle, and they sent letters to relatives of soldiers who fought at the battle, so on and so forth. But it was John Seymour who discovered that 2 weeks after the Battle of Oriskany in 1777, the Continental Congress, meeting in York, Pennsylvania at the time, knew that that was an important battle, and sent a letter to the governor of New York and said, the Congress, we're going to send you $500 to erect a monument in memory of General Nicholas Herkimer, who died gallantly at that important battle. Well, Congress had, I think, $1.98 in the bank. They didn't have $500, and the money was never sent. So here it is 100 years later, more than 100 years later, and John Seymour knows about that letter and what Congress has promised. So he has our congressman in Congress say, we want our $500. It was rejected the first time. Another congressman was elected from Rome, and I guess he was more persuasive, but he convinced Congress to come up with the $500 plus interest that had accumulated from 1777, which amounted to about $4,000, $4,000 or $5,000. So that was added, and the monument was erected and dedicated in 1884. Again, it was Oneida Historical Society, not the Oneida County at that time. It was its first project, and it was a success.
So there's been 3 names: Oneida Historical Society, Oneida County Historical Society, and now the Oneida County History Center, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The names, Frank, of, if I'm correct, the names of not just everyone killed at the Battle of Oriskany, but everybody who fought at the Battle of Oriskany are on that monument.
Yeah. And if anyone is really interested, years ago, it had to be 15, 20 years ago, Alan Foote, who at that time was a member of the board of the Oneida County Historical Society, he and 3 others, I'm forgetting their names, wrote a great book about the battle, Liberty March, it's called, where they list every soldier who left Fort Dayton with General Herkimer on the way to lift the siege of Fort Stanwix. Yeah.
So one of the things that, I don't know how you describe it, so I won't describe it, but when the Americans left the battlefield at Oriskany, they carried off their wounded, but they didn't bury their dead.
Now, years later, farmers there would dig up skeletons and find little things. That's the way it was. That's the way it was in those days. And of course, the reason we called it the turning point where we started in this program was if St. Ledger had been successful in capturing the fort and reaching Albany, there were 2 battles of Saratoga. The first one, the British, in September 1777, the British won but lost a lot of men. The second one in October 1777, the British lost mainly because they were outnumbered. If St. Ledger had reached, with 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 men, who knows what would have happened. So the Battle of Oriskany had a great effect on the outcome of the Battle of Saratoga.
Yeah.
So,
It popped into my mind, Frank, as you were talking, the dead laid in that field for, I think, a couple weeks until a famous man, he was infamous after a while, but at the time he was on our side, Benedict Arnold came through with his troops, yes?
yeah, after the Battle of Oriskany, St. Ledger still held siege around the fort. The Senecas and Mohawks had retreated to Oswego, but the British still surrounded the fort. Benedict Arnold, who was really America's, before he turned traitor, he was the General Patton
Yeah.
of the American Continental Army, and 800 men proceeded west along the Mohawk to relieve the siege. And there's a famous story how when he reached Fort Dayton, he sent someone to the British side to say that General Benedict Arnold was arriving with as many men as there are leaves on the trees. He only had 800 men. So many of the British decided, and St. Ledger decided, not to fight Benedict Arnold and retreat to Oswego. And you're right, then Benedict Arnold recovered a lot of those bodies at the battle, the Oriskany battle site.
Yeah. I don't know, is there going to be any, I know the Daughters of the American Revolution have always been very supportive in promoting the Oriskany battlefield. I don't know if there's I've been up there, in fact, with you for ceremonies
Yeah.
in the past. I don't know if anything's going on this year or
I
not.
haven't read anything about it. Of course, so many things have been postponed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know the Park Service at Fort Stanwix does a lot at
Yeah.
the Battle of Oriskany site now, which is a state historic site run by the state. I wish more would be done.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's taught in the schools, but more should be. The Battle of Oriskany was a real important battle.
Yeah.
That,
We've only got a couple seconds left, Frank, but I just wanted to make a note, and that was that's why they called Fort Schuyler in Utica Old Fort Schuyler, because we had a Fort Schuyler up in Rome, too.
Right. Utica was Fort Schuyler and during the French and Indian War, and you had Fort Stanwix in Rome. When they renamed Stanwix Schuyler, someone said, we already got a Schuyler in Utica,
Yeah.
which was a small fort.
Yeah.
And so they renamed the one in Utica Old Fort Schuyler.
Yeah. Maybe the next time you come in, we can, as you say, it wasn't much of a fort, but maybe next time you come in, we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for coming in this time, and thank you, everybody. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week. We'll do it all again. Don't forget, cnyhomepage.com, lots of good stuff there. Until next time, take care of yourself, everybody.